It's time for Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott, inviting the atheist, agnostic, and skeptic to examine for themselves the evidence for the Christian faith. We are all limited by what we do not know and by the things we think we know but are not true. Dr. Joe Mott earned his PhD at LSU and was a distinguished math professor at Florida State University for 38 years, helping to write 3 math textbooks and authoring over 30 research articles in math. He is now the host of this radio program, Defending and Commending the Faith. Here is Joe Mott.
Hello to everyone. Welcome to the program. We've been discussing Jesus of Nazareth, the unequaled, incomparable Christ. I continue that theme again today. Who is Jesus? Christianity asserts he is both God and man, but many skeptics question his deity. The truth for Christ's divinity follows from this argument. Premise 1. Jesus was either legend, lama, liar, lunatic, or Lord. Premise 2. Jesus is not legend, lama, liar, or lunatic. Therefore, Jesus is Lord. There are only 4 logical answers to the question, if Jesus is not God, then who is he? The bottom line on Christ's divinity is that Jesus is either legend, lama, liar, lunatic, or Lord. That is premise 1. How can we know that these 5 possible alternatives for premise 1? The reasoning goes like this. Jesus either claimed divinity or he did not. First, let's begin with the assumption that Jesus did claim divinity. Then Jesus either meant it literally or he meant it non-literally. Secondly, assume he meant it literally. If these 2 assumptions are true, then he is Lord. Thirdly, if the claim he meant it literally is false, and he knew it was false, then Jesus is a liar. Fourthly, if he didn't know it was false, then he is a lunatic. Fifthly, if Jesus meant his claim of divinity non-literally, that is, mystically, then he is a lama or a guru. Finally, if Jesus never claimed divinity, then the story of Jesus is a legend. These 5 alternatives are what is called a quintilemma concerning Jesus Christ. A lemma is a secondary proposition to demonstrate another primary proposition. When we are dealing with 2 propositions, we face a dilemma. 3 choices form a trilemma, etc. It follows that a quintilemma consists of 5 choices. In theological conversations, the quintilemma concerning Jesus Christ is the presentation of 5 alternatives concerning his person. Given the truth of premises 1 and 2, Jesus is Lord. In other words, Jesus is precisely who he claimed to be. So now allow me to give the evidence for the truth of premise 2. First main point. The idea that Jesus' story is a legend, that is, Jesus is nothing but a mythical person, is held by some skeptics. They affirm Jesus' story was invented by a group of deceivers, in which case the skeptics are claiming he did not really exist, but was created in the minds of the deceivers. The problem with those who choose this alternative is that there is substantial evidence of Jesus' real existence. Allow me to clarify. First subpoint. The skeptics have to explain how that claim is contrary to all eyewitness testimony recorded in Luke chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 through 8, 1 John chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, the Gospel of John chapter 1, verse 14, Acts chapter 2, verses 22 to 38, and 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 16 through 18. Second subpoint. In the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek, lists 10 non-biblical writers, all who record facts of Jesus' life, including 1. Josephus, the most famous Jewish historian who lived at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Second, Tacitus, who is considered one of the more accurate Roman historians of the ancient world. Third, Suetonius, chief secretary to the Emperor Hadrian. Fourth, Pliny the Younger, a Roman politician. Fifth, Thallus, a first-century historian. Sixth, Phlegon, a freed slave who wrote histories. 7, Lucian, a Greek satirist. 8th, Celsius, a Roman philosopher. 9th, Mara bar Serapion, a private citizen who wrote to his son. And 10th, the Jewish Talmud. Third subpoint. We also have the Islamic sacred book, the Quran, attesting to the truth of Jesus' existence. Fourth subpoint. Even Bart Ehrman, the skeptical critic of the New Testament Gospels, the divine inspiration of the Bible, the divinity of Jesus, and the historicity of the resurrection, he affirms, I think the evidence is just so overwhelming that Jesus existed that it's silly to talk about him not existing. I don't know anyone who is a responsible historian who is actually trained in the historical method, or anybody who is a biblical scholar who does this for a living, who gives any credence at all to any of this, end quotes. Fifth subpoint. Gary Habermas, the distinguished research professor and chair of the Department of Philosophy and Theology at Liberty University, and the author of several books on the resurrection of Jesus, declares in the book, The Verdict of History, that, quotes, very few scholars hold the view that Jesus never lived, end quotes. Habermas adds, quotes, even Rudolf Bultmann, one of the most influential critical theologians of the 20th century, an exponent of demythologizing the scripture, said, quotes, by no means are we at the mercy of those who doubt or deny that Jesus ever lived, end quotes. Habermas also points out the Gnostic writings attest to the truth of Jesus' existence. These writings include the Gospel of Truth, the Apocryphon of John, the Gospel of Thomas, and the Treatise on Resurrection. Habermas goes on to say, quotes, we have investigated a total of 17 sources, end quotes. And later he adds that, quotes, ancient extra-biblical sources do present a surprisingly large amount of detail concerning both the life of Jesus and the nature of early Christianity, end quotes. Norman Geisler, of whom I have immense respect, says that this book, The Verdict of History, quotes, takes the skeptics' claims and buries them forever under the sands of ignorance and irrationality, end quotes. Sixth subpoint, perhaps the greatest evidence that Jesus did exist is the fact that so many first century AD Christians, including the disciples of Jesus, were willing to give their lives as martyrs for Jesus Christ. People will die for what they believe is true, but no one will die for what they know to be a lie. So now we can reasonably affirm that Jesus really existed and his story is not a legend. Second main point, some skeptics claim that Jesus is a liar, that is, a hoax, a deceiver, an impostor. Why couldn't Jesus be a liar? Peter Kreeft and Ronald Tacelli give an answer in the Handbook of Christian Apologetics. They write, quotes, because he has the wrong psychological profile. He was unselfish, loving, caring, compassionate, and passionate about teaching truth and helping others to follow the truth. End quotes. Liars lie for selfish reasons, like money, fame, pleasure, or power. Jesus gave up all worldly goods and life itself. Kreeft and Tacelli continue. Quotes, because there was no conceivable motive for his lie. It brought him hatred, rejection, misunderstanding, persecution, torture, and death. End quotes. A third reason Jesus couldn't be a liar, quotes, because he could not have hoped that his so-called lie would be successful. In fact, we see him at every step of his life's way, fully knowing and predicting his own execution, and claiming that he came to earth precisely for that reason, to suffer and die. He perfectly lived out Mother Teresa's saying, God did not put me here to be successful, but to be faithful. End quotes. In the case that Jesus is a liar, you have to explain how so many people marveled at the authority of his words. Even the officers who found it impossible to arrest him said, quotes, no one ever spoke like this man. That is found in the Gospel of John, chapter 7, verse 46. How can you explain how he also could have been the greatest spiritual leader and the most selfless atoning sacrifice the world has ever encountered? Third main point, why couldn't Jesus be a lunatic? Again, Kreeft and Tacelli give an answer. First, quotes, because the psychological profiles are opposite. The lunatic lacks the very qualities that shine in Jesus: practical wisdom, tough love, and unpredictable creativity. Second, when we meet a lunatic, we are uncomfortable because we feel superior to him. When his enemies met Jesus, they were uncomfortable for the opposite reason. End quotes. If Jesus is a lunatic, you have to explain how he could have been the wisest teacher you have ever heard. Fourth main point, still other skeptics emphasize Jesus is a lama, where they have affirmed he meant things mystically what he claimed about himself. And he did not mean it literally. Some New Age teachers cite this alternative to support their claim that Jesus taught religious ideas something like Buddhism rather than Christianity. The actress Shirley MacLaine claims that Jesus traveled, quotes, around India and Tibet and Persia and the Near East, end quotes, and was trained as a yogi before returning to Galilee. The fact is there is no basis regarding the claim that Jesus studied in the East. No ancient document affirms that Jesus ever lived or traveled outside the land of Israel, except for the time in Egypt in his infancies. That's found in Matthew chapter 2. Fifth main point, or Jesus is Lord, the person which is exactly who he claimed to be. These are the 5 alternatives. Jesus is a legend, lama, liar, lunatic, or Lord. The answer by the process of elimination is obvious. Jesus is Lord. Allow me to close this episode by reminding you, exercise daily. Walk with God.
Thank you for listening to Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott, a production of Wave 94 Radio in Tallahassee, Florida. If you have any questions or comments for Joe, please forward them to Doug Apple at Wave94 at this email address, dougapple@wave94.com. And be sure to join us every Monday evening at 6:45 p.m. on Wave 94 and subscribe through your favorite podcast app. Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott.